How's it going, friends? Right down here is Main Street, Frederick, Colorado. Shout out to this pretty adorable City Hall museum and this pretty great park back here. And Frederick sits right in the middle of two other cities, one of which is called Firestone to the north, one of which is called Dacono to the south. Some people call it Dacono. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's my Scandinavian roots. Dacono sounds right to me. So today's video, we're doing a virtual tour of all three, the Tri-Town area, AKA Carbon Valley. Let's dive in. How's it going? Your friend Jesse Lynch here with the hardest working real estate team in the game. Welcome to Denver. You can check out our website, welcometodenver.co. But this YouTube channel is all about helping you find a place to call home, a place to land here in beautiful Denver, Colorado, the Front Range of Colorado, really the Rocky Mountains, Colorado in general. And that's whether you're buying a house for the first time or relocating here from a different city, state, country, planet, universe, dimension, whatever it is. First-time home buyers and relocations, that's what we do, and that's what we do better than anybody else. So if either of those two things appeal to you, then do us both a favor, do us all a favor. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get notified every time we put out these videos. And while you're at it, while I have you here, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up and leave a comment of any sort at all. I've been noticing a ton of birds around here, so maybe favorite bird, favorite raptor, I mean bald eagle. That seems almost not fair. I have an American kestrel tattooed on me. I also have a barn owl tattooed. I'm a fan of birds for whatever reason. You could also just comment, I like turtles, because I saw some turtles over there. Also, that video is fantastic. And that comment, the thumbs up, it's helpful not only to this video, not just to my ego or this channel, but to other folks like yourself who are looking up information like this, trying to figure out, you know, where they want to move. How does the process work of buying a home here in Colorado? And that's what this channel is all about. And if that is you, if that sounds like something you're interested in, then get a hold of us. We'll crush it for you. Nobody will work harder for you than we will. You can go to our website, welcometodenver.co, as in Colorado, and we have a contact form there that you can fill out in literally 30 seconds, or you can shoot us an email directly to info@welcometodenver.co. They lead to the same spot, so completely up to you, you know, how you want to do it. Live your life. We just ask that you do reach out, because that sounds like fun. All right, sounds good. We agree. You're going to reach out. Sweet. All right, today's video is an interesting one and a little bit different than some of the ones that we've done. We're actually combining three very small, almost unincorporated sort of cities, towns more so than that. And these three towns are known as the Tri-Town area, very clever, also known as Carbon Valley. And the three individual towns are named Dacono, Firestone, and Frederick. And basically they are kind of not homogenous. They all kind of have their own little identity, just generally targeting Carbon Valley, Tri-Town area, right? And a lot of it has to do with the, you know, newer housing stock available and all that. But right now I am in St. Vrain State Park, and it is beautiful. Again, all the birds, and, you know, water, Minnesota boy at heart, and I appreciate this water very, very much. And you know, it's kind of early spring, so obviously it nothing has grown in, it's not lush, but it is still beautiful. Folks are fishing, folks are camping over here, and yeah, cool spot. Definitely would recommend swinging by here. It's like right off the highway, maybe 45 minutes from downtown Denver. Definitely worth checking out. Going for a walk around these pond/lake situations, and yeah, all right. Shall we? Want to hop over more into the towns? We're going to show you around and just kind of talk through what it's like to live here in Carbon Valley, aka Tri-Town area, aka Dacono, Firestone, and Frederick. Let's go. right, friends, this is going to be the about section for Dacono, Firestone, and Frederick. Hopefully, okay. All right, friends, right here is Firestone Boulevard, and basically all up and down right here is going to be the heart of your commercial amenities, really, that serve all three of these cities, Dacono, Firestone, and Frederick. And like I said earlier, these three cities are sort of grouped into one, Carbon Valley, or the Tri-Town area, and they have a very similar, you know, sort of vibe throughout. So it does make sense. I think it makes sense to make a video about all of them collectively, and I'll try to discuss some of the differences between them, right? Firestone is the furthest north of all three, and it's probably somewhere around 45-ish minutes to downtown Denver, and about the same to the airport from here. It could, you know, creep up to an hour with more traffic. And, you know, as you get closer, obviously as you get further south, Dacono would be the closest, and Frederick would obviously be somewhere in between. So Firestone is the sort of fastest growing and largest currently out of the three. The population is around 20,000, and it's grown by almost 100% in the last decade. So it's doubled in size in the last decade, which is pretty crazy. Frederick is in the middle, Mama Bear, 15,000 people. It's grown by 75% in the last decade. And then Dacono is the last smallest, 6,000 or 7,000 people, and it's grown by about 60% in the last decade. So much growth going on here, and you're gonna see so much just new, right? Like, this whole commercial area is new. And so really, when I think about the Carbon Valley, it's all about, you know, access to like new homes, and then also affordability. The Carbon Valley is one of the most sort of affordable new build areas in the, you know, Front Range, I suppose, because technically it's not part of the Denver metro. It's actually part of the Greeley metro, statistically speaking, but it is also very close to Longmont, close to Erie, and a lot of people that we're helping who are, you know, moving to Denver are considering this as one of the options. And a big part of it is you can get a new build for so much cheaper here than if you were in closer, right? Median sale prices, just like population, it's the same order. Most expensive is Firestone, $628,000 median sale price, and then Frederick, $573,000 median sale price, and I'm gonna let that motorcycle go. Dacono is $512,000 median sale price, which compared to the metro and how new everything is here is actually very cheap. You get a lot of house, a lot of yard for your money, because, you know, you're 45 minutes away from downtown Denver. You might not be surprised to learn that the schools basically have exactly the same order, which is that Firestone schools are rated slightly better than Frederick, which are rated slightly better than Dacono schools. Realistically, the best you can hope for a high school is going to be a B+, and that would be like Erie High School, Meade High School. Middle schools, if you have Meade Middle School, that's an A-, and then you're also, everything is going to be below that. And then middle schools, it's going to be the same. A- is going to be the best. But I do think that a lot of the appeal of buying something here is sort of the gamble, not that big of a gamble, more so the long-term investment of, I'm pretty sure that that's going to blow up pretty soon. You know what I mean? And I think that would probably be a pretty fair bet, right? I think we said this about Erie. Jen lives in Erie, and she sort of got in pretty early, and her thought was, this place is going to grow in value pretty considerably. Pretty safe to say the same for these three. Okay, now we're gonna hop down into Frederick. We're gonna talk through some pros and cons. Let's do it. friends. Right now I'm in a neighborhood. It's quite a beautiful neighborhood. Everything is probably built post 2000, right? And some considerably newer than that. And it sits at a golf course, Bella Rosa Golf Course. There's actually another golf course just over there as well. And right over here, which we're walking toward, is Milovic Reservoir, which is a beautiful reservoir. And unfortunately, these folks don't have like a direct view of it, but it is very easy. Walking paths built into the community, and you can, there's like literally a hole right here of the golf course and the reservoir right here. Super pretty area. And the crazy thing is houses in here. This is, compared to Denver, is stunning. You can get a house in here for under 600,000. So a less than 20-year-old house, very nicely appointed home for less than 600,000. And now you could spend more. You might be able to spend up to 800 if you were maybe right on the golf course or something like that, or a particularly large home. But that is such good value for the Denver Metro, although not technically part of the Denver Metro, right? It's technically part of the Greeley Metro, but to have access to Denver, 45 minutes out, and sort of this suburban lifestyle for under 600,000. By the way, these are everywhere. Wood carvings, no big deal. They're all over the place in this neighborhood, really in this community. And right here, this is technically Frederick, obviously just right between Firestone and Dacono. And I'm here, I want to talk about pros and cons. I want to talk through the pros and cons of these areas, and just, what's the difference? What are the good? What's the good? What's the bad? And for one, I would say first pro that comes to mind is just like pretty tremendous outdoor spaces, right? Whether it's a spot like this reservoir or St. Vrain State Park, like I was at earlier, or just more of the municipal parks. There's so much space, right? And maybe that's kind of the second pro. There's just room. There's just so much like room to spread out, and just kind of a chiller lifestyle that, the closer you get to Denver, kind of the more busy it gets, right? Personally, kind of enjoy that, but I can absolutely see how this would be the right fit for a lot of folks, even maybe myself, in, a year or two. Another pro for me is going to be the kind of just the cool, cute, quaint downtown Frederick. It is just a neat spot. You're in the suburb, right? I would call this a suburb, but it sort of has the soul of a small town, and I like that. You've got, a brewery there, you have shops and good restaurants there. So access to a lot of kind of like fun, more interesting spots, and still access to some suburban amenities. I'll get to that in a second. But then pro number 3 for me is kind of what this is all about. So much house, so much yard, and newer homes for your money, right? Again, the same amount of money doesn't get you super far, in Denver specifically, or in a lot of the immediate suburbs to Denver. So just so much more house here than, a lot of these closer suburbs. I think that's the big trade-off, right? And yeah, you get large lots, you get nice communities, and so much of this area is new. I talked about that already. The growth these areas are seeing is pretty wild, but I get it, and they're doing a great job with sort of forming these communities, and you have really great access, almost equal access, to Fort Collins and Denver. That is a pretty unique spot, right? There's only a handful of places with that good of access to both of those areas. And then last pro that I can really think of is going to be just the peaceful, sort of idyllic suburban neighborhoods, suburban lifestyle, right? I said it earlier, just easygoing. It's not rural, so it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere, but just, it kind of reminds me of like how I grew up, right? And it's just a chill. You can play out in the street, and you know, parents didn't worry about you that much, right? So also a different era, you know. But yeah, just chiller, just an easier lifestyle here. And you know, stuff like this space is just very, very cool. So cons, what are cons? Okay, I think there's definitely some pretty valid cons here. The first of which I would say is the schools being kind of a variety of pretty good and not that great, right? You have some schools that are in sort of the C rating. Those are probably going to be the older style schools that have been around a little bit longer. The best is an A-, but again, the area is so big. I guess more than anything, I would just say, if you're moving here, if schools are a priority, just pay attention to what school, you know, a home will be sort of assigned to. Con number 2 is while you do have access to some suburban amenities and you do have access to some of the cooler, kind of quaint, small town independent stuff, specifically in Frederick, it's still kind of slim pickings, right? As far as these suburban amenities go, there's like, you know, a grocery store in Firestone, a grocery store in Frederick. Dacono, you're on your own, right? You're coming up here for sure for most of that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just not a ton of stuff going on, which is also just kind of the next con is just there's a sleepiness, right? So if you're looking for like where the action is, this is not it, right? But I think most of the folks who are looking for this peaceful suburban lifestyle are not interested in being where the action is, right? Those are kind of two converse or conflicting notions, right? Con number 3 or 4, I can't really remember, that was kind of 3, is basically you're gonna find like what I call echoes of a rural past, which is hardly even echoes of a rural past. It's still very rural, right? Again, this is a farm, right? That's farmland right there. There's literally one of those, what do they call them? Oil jack, pump jack, right? I don't know, something like that right there. And you definitely have sort of that rural, you know, stuff going on, which is to say there are, you know, some homes with stuff in the yard, and maybe that was cool then, but now, you know, a lot of people aren't into it, right? There's also, you know, kind of certain parts of it, certain access to it, it almost just feels like a truck stop, right? Like off of the highway, you're just like, this is one of those exits where it's just a truck stop and nobody would live here. But sure enough, there is a legitimate community, which I think will be growing more and more. And yeah, right? It's kind of, so like I said earlier, it's a little bit of a gamble, but not even really that big of a gamble. Just more of maybe a long-term investment in saying it's gonna grow and these prices will go up, which I think is a pretty safe bet. All right, real quick, one last look-see here. I mean, so nice. All right, like what you see here, I'm gonna tell you some other spots to consider if you're into this, even though this is technically 3 spots to consider. So, you know, I'm already giving you other spots to consider. Let's go. All right, y'all, right now I'm in a neighborhood in Dacono, one of the newer spots within Dacono. Again, Dacono only has a population of 6,000 people, a fairly large landmass, so pretty sparsely populated. And this little community, while adorable, it's not very large. Maybe ends that way and maybe 6 city blocks that way. So pretty small, fairly modest in size, but this neighborhood, you can get a single family home built in the last decade for $550, maybe a little more than that once once you're competing with other people, but sub 600 for a less than a decade old home, which is difficult to find just about anywhere. And before I hop into some other neighborhoods that might appeal to you, if you like what you see here, I would just like to say, if you are thinking about moving here, get a hold of us and we will crush it for you. Nobody will work harder for you than we will. You can go to our website, welcometodenver.co. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in 30 seconds if you have all your information, which is easy stuff. Or you can shoot us an email directly to info@welcometodenver.co. They lead to the same inbox. So completely up to you how you do it. We just ask that you do it because we look forward to it. And all right, what are some other areas, the for fans of section that we have? If you're into this spot, what might be some other areas that you might be interested in? Again, there's already 3 spots to choose from in this video, but one that comes to mind immediately is Erie. And Erie is basically to the southeast corner of the Carbon Valley. And while it's going to be slightly more expensive, it's a little closer in, a little further developed. They have like a Whole Foods coming up there in the relatively near future. It's kind of like if you just were to look into the future of what this spot is by maybe 10 years, that's kind of where Erie is sitting at. And yeah, a lot of great stuff going on for Erie. We have a virtual tour on that, so definitely check that out if you have not yet. Next one up, also have a virtual tour, is Longmont. And Longmont is basically immediately to the west of the Carbon Valley and kind of has an old, like an old school, almost rural, like small town vibe. Has a lot of similar qualities, but maybe more of an older housing stock, right? This is newer homes, that's a little older, maybe a little more complete, actually definitely more complete in its sort of suburban amenities than the Carbon Valley, but pretty similar lifestyles overall. And the next, which shares a lot of those same sort of aspects, is going to be Loveland. By the way, a lot of L's. Loveland. And Loveland has a very cute downtown, one of my favorite little downtowns in like rural Colorado. Just super cute, and also has pretty diverse housing stock. And it also has a fairly diverse housing stock, a little bit more of a history, I would say, than Firestone or Dacono. Maybe Frederick, because it's an old mining town, has a similar kind of amount of history as well. And then 2 more spots that come to mind that we do not have virtual tours on yet, but we are filming very soon. Lafayette and Louisville. I think I called it Louisville when I first started coming here. But Louisville and Lafayette, they're sort of to the southwest, and they just have similar sort of path of progress sort of ideas, similar to Erie, maybe more like Erie than here. Just that it's kind of where things are headed. And if you can sort of buy something in the path of where things are headed, then potentially you have yourself a good investment on your hands. But you can see around here, pretty nice houses, pretty good square footage for sub $600,000, and just kind of a peaceful, walkable, trick-or-treatable neighborhood. So cool. I hope you've enjoyed this. As always, if you're new to the channel and have not done so yet, subscribe to it and click the bell to get notified so you can see when we put out these videos, these very immersive, very in-depth videos. And while you're at it, while I have you here, if you wouldn't mind giving the video a thumbs up, say what's up in the comments. I would appreciate that so much. All right, y'all, we did it. This has been a virtual tour of Dacono, Frederick, Firestone. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.